Now, the next thing we really want to talk about is scaling margin. What if we do want to push up the budget? Because, hey, I'm not saying that pushing up the budgets is a bad thing. I just talked about being able to take a brand from $300, $400, $500 a day to $10, $20, $30, $40, $100,000 a day. Absolutely happened. Hell, I've spent over $1 million a day before. Isolated incidences, but absolutely happened. Incidents, whatever. Absolutely happened. So when you want to scale your budget, we have to understand this math, right? Of what we're on average paying to acquire a customer, our bid, that's our average cost, and our budget, right? Plus our estimated action rate and our advertiser score. Now, if our objective is to make a sale for, say, 50 bucks, and we're coming in at 48, you can be like, hey, we're great. Scale to the moon. And you're going to be rebuilding everything in a week. Instead, you could work on making those ads smarter by, again, not spending in more places, letting more and more data come into more and more, into fewer and fewer places, getting smarter and smarter and smarter, letting it see the whole funnel, and not trying to undermine Facebook's unfair business advantage in the entire marketplace of controlling user journeys across multiple platforms and multiple devices, which is literally why they are the smartest, greatest tool on the face of the planet at what they did and dominated the world in an optimized CPM environment. They won. They won the social media battle. You could try to outsmart that, or you could just go broad and let all of your data fit into here. Now we're going to solve the problem by making better ads, which infinitely is smarter and way easier to manage. If the only thing you have to manage is reducing your estimated, is improving your estimated action rate and improving your advertiser score, then what ultimately that does is it improves the margin between your target cost and what you're averaging. And that's where we really want things to work. So let's say we're coming at the point where we are at $50 target and we're coming in at 40 bucks on a trailing 7-day average. That's great. That means we are getting like 20% more results, right? Because we're able to see more business. Then we are minimum allowable. We've scaled the business. Now what that means is we can crank up the spend. So if we're at a $40, let's say it's less aggressive. Let's say it's $45, okay? At a 45, our target is 50. We're coming in at 45. We're driving 10% more sales a day than the minimum allowable for our investment. We're doing good. Now what that means is we could theoretically spend 10% more money today. And if we get 0 more sales across the entire business, which is also not actually going to happen because of incremental lift, your email open rates are going to go up, your SEO will improve, and your search volume is going to go up, your Amazon sales are going to happen, your TikToks are going to get more organic reach, your Instagram is going to be better. Like all of the other facets of your business are going to improve because you're spending more money on Facebook. That's also another given fact, not arguable. But let's say none of that happens. Let's say that Facebook exists in isolation and you have the absolute worst possible case scenario and that you just spend more money to reach a whole bunch of people who will never, ever talk to anybody ever again about anything that you have to do, and your business has no ability to monetize any attention other than a click on a Facebook ad, which, again, doesn't exist. That situation does not exist. Let's take that absolute worst case scenario. $45 plus 10% is $49.50. You're still coming in at 50 cents less than your overall blended target CPA. Now, if you notice, I'm talking about CPA a lot because ROAS and MER doesn't mean anything. ROAS and MER is luck today. Out of context data, it's not actionable. CPA is actionable. When we talk about profitable scaling margin, that's actionable, right? What can we afford to acquire a customer? We can spend up to 50 bucks. Great. Well, our Facebook platform right now is coming in at 45. Awesome. Let's take our one campaign. We can crank up the spend 10%. Absolute worst case scenario. We're still coming in at 1% better than our overall target, 50 cents, 1% of the $50. The point is here, that is actually how you scale. You establish a scaling margin in your business, and then you spend into it. Now, if you really want to be clever, you don't want to set the entire thing on flames, here's what you can do instead. Don't raise it by 10%. Raise it by 5%. Wait a couple of days and spend a little bit more. If you were to raise your budget by 5%, 2-3 times a week, within a couple of months, you can easily 2, 3, 4, 5x your business. Now, maybe that margin is continuing to stay, because now you're also getting more data into the system. So you're getting more data into the system, which also allows you to spend more money on creative testing inside of your dynamic creative testing ad sets inside of your one campaign, which is literally all you need until you're spending millions. You can get to $1 million a month runway on literally one campaign. And anybody that says that that's too simple or not, or you need to do other things, they're just objectively wrong. Like flat out, they're just wrong. I mean, I've proven it at least a dozen times for years and been teaching people around the world how to do that. And I've talked about that a lot here on Facebook and on YouTube about the Facebook ads all the time. The one campaign to rule them all, how to spend $1 million in one place. Super easy to do. It's just a matter of actually working on your creative testing, because we're working on improving our estimated action rate and our advertiser score, which allows us to spend more money. Because remember, spending more money will objectively make your performance worse on day one. But because we have only one campaign, because it's CBO, and because we're just crank up the volume a little bit, we're also getting more data into that campaign, which means it's getting smarter faster, which means while we might see an initial reduction in our overall efficiency, maybe we go from $45 to $47, $48. After a week or two, especially if we get another good ad in there, who's to say it doesn't go down? Who's to say that more data doesn't make the system actually smarter? And if we get the creative testing with more resources to produce more better ads, I've done this repeatedly over and over again and taken a CPA at $3,000 a day. We were getting a 60. At $50,000 a day, I was able to get it down to 12. More data, fewer places, dynamic ads, broad targeting, using scaling margin to define your data set instead of trying to spend more money and then complain when it breaks, because apparently you don't understand simple algebra that was explained to you, but because you've been lied to by people on the internet and your bosses for years, because they just didn't know any better. Ultimately, at some point, people that didn't know what they were talking about were in high places of authority and explained bad information to people that they poorly trained, overworked, and underpaid. And then those people started agencies and did the same thing in the next group. And then those people started agencies and did the same thing in the next group, and so on, and so on, and so on. I've personally seen 4 or 5 generations of this thing happen. And there's no reason that today is any different. So my point here is, if you truly want to scale the business, make the business better, and then you can ask it to deliver more resources. Think about it as a factory, okay? Now, if your factory can produce 100 things a day, and you need to get to 110, you have really 2 choices. Number 1, you make the people work longer, all right? We have an 8-hour workday or a 10-hour workday. That's not good enough. You're going to work 11 hours. Theoretically, that'll get you there. Or you teach the people how to be better at their job. And so in that same workday, they can produce 11 or 12 or 20 items. If they can produce those items on a regular basis, it means that when you do add more employees or extend the workday or make the factory bigger, you aren't going to lose that efficiency nearly as much as when you just ask people to work longer, because you've already established a margin of effectiveness. And that's really key here. So the point is not to drive it home too much, but the point is, if you want to scale your business, get better at doing the job. That's infinitely more important than trying to figure out how to spend more money, because spending more money is less desirable in scaling your business than getting better at doing the work. When you're good enough at the work, you can spend more because you have a margin in which to scale. And you can change that 5, 10% a week, a day at a time. You can do that 2, 3 times a week. Who's to say you can't? But if you're sitting at a 45 and you raise it by 5%, maybe, absolute worst case scenario, you don't get any additional sales, right? So if you get no additional sales of that 50, you're going to go to 47.50. Now, odds are we know you're going to get incremental lift across other channels, so your actually net performance isn't going to go all the way up to 47.50. Maybe it goes up to 47 on a blended. And then after a few days, the things get smarter, and you're able to test more ideas. And maybe because you're getting a higher volume of data and making that machine smarter on a regular basis with better ads, you actually reduce your cost to 43. spend more again. And you're going to see that happen over and over and over again. That's how you scale a business. When somebody says, how do I spend more money on Facebook? What it means is they're not interested in getting better at the job. They want to maintain efficiency and just force the machine to work harder. And the honest truth is that doesn't work. It can work in isolation for a short period of time. You know, often we have untapped potential, right? And when you spend in that untapped potential, that's great. But if you drain the bucket faster than you fill it, eventually you have nothing left. And I think that's a really, really key point. So we will get to one other part about automating all of this, because believe me, it can be. I currently have multiple accounts spending between $500 and $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a day that I basically touch once or twice a week, because all the budgets are completely automated. All I'm doing is dynamic creative testing after running Golden Bear on some elements. And I'm just getting better and better at letting Facebook have higher quality choices to make on my behalf, because I'm a good manager. I'm not a micromanager of my employees and then upset at them when they fail because I tried to bank my entire business on somebody that got lucky on day 3. I'm not running creative tests once a week and then taking whatever wins and throwing into my scaling campaign and betting the farm on it and then complaining when I lose, because I'm not a victim. It's a choice. You just need to be taught how to use the system properly. And that's what this is all about. So I hope that this makes sense. By the way, there's way more videos, way more podcasts about this stuff, way more blogs on my site. You can absolutely dive into those. Go to links.thefacebookdisruptor.com. You can also get into the webinars. You can talk about the MBA program. You can get consulting stuff. I'm more than willing to sit down with you and make this work with you, because it's really easy. Once that light bulb switches,